Thank you very much, sir, for coming for the interview. More than just a game, what does it mean?
More than just a game, as it explains, it means soccer was not just an ordinary game to the political prisoners on Robben Island. It meant far more than that, because soccer was for them a way of life. That's why it was called. That's why we say it was more than just a game.
In reality, we're actually talking about soccer.
In reality, we are talking about soccer, but what soccer meant in the lives of the people that played soccer on Robben Island, and why they played soccer, how they played it, and how they managed it, and why they did it the way they did it.
And we also know that you've been to Robben Island. How would you describe your personal experience in the island?
Well, look, on Robben Island, there are several levels of experience. Personal experience, by that, if you mean how I felt being on Robben Island and how I coped with the situation on Robben Island as an individual. It wasn't easy without the help or without the support of the other inmates, the other prisoners, inmates. It was a very challenging situation. It was very intimidating and daunting. But because one was there for a purpose, or one believed that one had a purpose why one was on Robben Island, that purpose gave one strength and courage to survive the experience on Robben Island.
What actually was the big trauma? What actually was the big difficult moment for you there as a prisoner, or as a person who became a prisoner in his own country?
Look, although it was traumatic to be arrested and to be put on Robben Island or to be put in prison in your own country, but one had to reconcile himself to the fact that if you engage in a campaign, in a campaign there are casualties, and if you happen to be a casualty, you have to accept that and deal with that situation of being a casualty. And so we were casualties of the campaign in which we were engaged, the campaign to free our country. Two things could have happened. One could have died and one could have gone to prison, and we went to prison.
Looking back to the days of apartheid, where human rights was overly abused, and looking at today, would you say that South Africa has actually gotten what they wanted? Looking at the struggle, putting it into the context that people lost their life and the whole lot of noise that actually went on, how would you assess the situation today? Look,
there's been a tremendous change in the country. The fact that the country is now governed by black people, the indigenous people, is what we fought for. The fact that black people are beginning to increase control over the economy and the means of production, that's an encouragement. It's still difficult in that the agreements that were made with the previous government suggest that a lot of influence and a lot of control still remains in the hands of white South Africans. But because the intention was not actually to disadvantage anybody, that was not the intention. That is why we did not take by force from white people. We are saying that to them, we're suggesting to them that they must begin to learn to share with the rest of the populations. And we as black people have to understand that when we have control is about being responsible to either minorities and people of different groups. And so we do not intend in any way to be bosses over everybody, but we intend to be responsible leaders of the country.
As a person who has stayed in the famous Robben Island, what would you like the audience to know about this story?
First of all, when people look at the movie More Than Just a Game, we want them to understand or to see the triumph of the human spirit over adversity and adverse conditions and situations. We want the people to see that there can be hope where otherwise the situation is intended to be helpless and hopeless and to be brutal, that there is always hope. We want the people to understand people shouldn't take things for granted. We battled hard just to be allowed to play the game of soccer, which we people outside here take it for granted that it's a given right for them to play soccer. That those rights can be taken away, and to get those rights back sometimes takes a lot of fighting. And like many other things, the fight for freedom, the fight for liberation, the fight for equality and justice, those things are things that today people take for granted. The country is liberated, South Africa is liberated. The youth in South Africa now do not understand what it cost the people before them, what it cost them for them to get that freedom. We want people to understand that situations can be negotiated. In the film, you will see that it's always about negotiations, tolerance, and giving and taking, and changing attitudes is not an easy thing, but that people's attitudes can be changed. We change the water's attitudes towards us, towards our dignity and our humanity. We asserted ourselves as a people, but we did not have to use force to do that. We used, as I suggest, we used negotiations, we used tolerance, we used sharing of space, and this is what we'd like, the message that we'd like people to walk away with from this film.